Joining us now, senior investigative correspondent Drew Griffin, who's been reporting extensively on veterans charities for years, including one that was mentioned today. Also, White House correspondent Jim Acosta, who, as you heard, came under some attention today as was it Great Beauty?
Real Beauty.
Real Beauty, okay. Chief political correspondent Dana Bash also joins us, and conservative radio talk show host Dana Loesch. Always good to have you as well. Dana, Drew, let's first of all talk about Donald Trump lashing out at the media for asking questions about the veterans fundraisers. You've gone through the names of a lot of these organizations, a lot of them completely legitimate, totally above board. What have you found in general?
One thing that struck me at the news conference is he said that he vetted all these groups, and it took this long to release this information because he was doing such a great job of vetting. But then he said, Anderson, I didn't look at their federal tax returns. Well, that set off light bulbs, and we did. So we started looking at one in particular. It's called the Foundation for American Veterans. It's a veterans charity like many we've reported on with you on your show. It's a bad charity. It's being sued in the state of Minnesota. Basically, this is a charity that has raised and given $27 million since 2010 to a fundraiser, a private fundraiser, and according to the Attorney General in Minnesota, has given 10% or so of donations to actual good causes.
So this is one of those groups you've done a lot of reporting on, and this is a problem that we've seen time and time again with these a lot of phony
huge overhead. Charities. All the money goes to professional fundraisers. This fundraiser, in its last filing, gave millions and millions to a professional fundraiser that's under investigation in Minnesota for misleading donors. And this is the one he gave $75,000 to today and told us that his campaign vetted this group. No one would have given money to this if they just did a Google search.
Any idea that the Trump organization knew this? I mean, obviously, no one wants to give money.
We've reached out. We've asked. We haven't gotten a question yet, but that's how it goes with this campaign. We've been asking for information on all this fundraising since it began 4 months ago.
Jim, you were there at the press conference. I mean, how do you see this? What is the attack on the media? Is it look? It's certainly popular. It certainly plays well to a base and probably to a large audience. Do you think it's part of a planned thing that Donald Trump does, or is it just in the heat of the moment?
It's half emotional, half tactical, I think, Anderson. I talked to a Trump advisor earlier today who said, you know what, when he goes after the press like this, our supporters really love it. And nobody really cares about you guys in the press, which is true. There's a lot of truth to that. But I think at the same time, if you can't answer questions about money that you've raised for veterans groups and where that money has gone and how much money have you contributed and where is that money going to go eventually, it does raise the question, can you take the heat of running for president of the United States? And that was the thrust of my question earlier today. And as you saw from the way he responded, he didn't much like the question. He doesn't like questions that make him uncomfortable. And we see this all the time on the campaign trail. He talks about the dishonest media or the disgusting media. But a lot of this, Anderson, is stuff that his crowds just eat up.
Dana Bash, it's interesting because, I mean, Donald Trump obviously has a long relationship with the media. He has not only talking about this campaign, but prior to that, whether under his name or other pseudonyms that he would call into reporters with allegedly. But it clearly seems to be, now that he's running for office, there's a different level of scrutiny, a different type of reporter, a different type of attention, and he certainly doesn't seem to appreciate that.
Clearly, he doesn't appreciate it, and that was abundantly obvious during this press conference and watching kind of the way it unfolded as Jim and our other colleagues and competitors kind of joined forces to ask the same kind of questions, which is, wait a minute, like this is what you're doing now. You are running for president of the United States. And it is, in some ways, you can look at it as, isn't he biting the hand that feeds him in a way, because he is Donald Trump, the brand, the iconic figure, because he understands the media so well. I mean, in a way that nobody else comes close to understanding and has for decades. But understanding it as a marketer and as a entertainer, which is what he was on The Apprentice, and as a businessman is a far different kind of approach. It's entirely different than when you're running for the highest office in the land and to be the leader of the free world. And at the end of the day, I said this earlier, when Drew Griffin and other reporters try to get the information about what he set out there as a promise and as a goal, which is to raise money for veterans, it is up to us in the press to get that information. If he's a businessman, if he's a private citizen, he doesn't have that responsibility. Now we both have the responsibility, those of us in the press, to ask the questions, and he, as a candidate for president, to give the answers.
Dana Loesch, how do you see it?
Well, I'm glad to see that the press is finally standing up to do his job. Look, I think that Trump can be scrutinized. I mean, he's a politician. He's applying for the top job in the land. So, of course, the press is to scrutinize these candidates. They're to scrutinize these people. And so should citizen journalists as well. But here's the thing. One of the reasons that we're seeing this visceral reaction against the press, Anderson, is because for actually a little over 8 years, we've seen a press that has protected certain aspects of the Beltway. We've seen a press that has protected this current administration. We've seen a press that has turned a blind eye to Fast and Furious. And we saw them turn a blind eye to the Affordable Care Act and the reporting therein of people losing their insurance. We saw it again with Benghazi, everything being reported on as like it's a non-story or it's some sort of made-up scandal. So yeah, people don't trust the press. The press, I think, what was it? They have a higher unfavorability rating than Congress, and that's for a reason. So the press has to earn back respect from people. And you know, I'm not surprised to see someone actually have this sort of interaction with the press. However, on the other hand, you have to expect that when you are running for president, and particularly if you are running for president as a Republican, the press is going to come after you, and they're going to come after you harder than they will the other side.
Do you think, Dana, that Trump looks at all thin-skinned on this? Because, I mean, I keep coming back to the idea that, you know, he has had relationships with reporters. He's had a close relationship with reporters for going back decades. He's had, you know, probably more press attention going back decades, but it is a completely different kind of attention than he is going to be getting now. And I think he seems to bristle at it, perhaps understandably, or, I mean, do you think that plays a role in this as well? That he's just not used to this sort of, you know, it's one thing for reporters to be covering, you know, you as a business person or the foibles or whatever it is, but when you're running for president, it is a different level of attention.
Right. No, I do agree with that. And you really can't be used to this level until you've actually gone through it and have experienced it. But, you know, at the same time that we're talking about where the money went, and I think that these are good questions to ask. Look, I'm not saying that none of these questions are horrible questions to ask, and I think it's smart to vet these charities before you start distributing funds. But at the same time, I would love to see this sort of turning over every single rock and looking for in every nook and cranny and gathering all the facts. I would love to see this applied to every other aspect of Washington, D.C. and the current administration, which we haven't. So, you know, I think people need to understand, they need to have this expectation that, well, you know, there's this relationship that the media has kind of cultivated.
Dana, I want you to respond.
I was just going to say, you know, I'm actually going to defer to Jim Acosta, who has been covering this administration, who probably has a very different experience in covering this administration, because they think that we're unfair to them, and you know, we hear it from Democrats as well. The fact that Hillary Clinton is looking at this, who is, even though Republicans maybe don't think she has been one of the most scrutinized people out there. That just goes to show, you know, where you stand depends on where you sit.
Yeah, Jim.
And I have to say,
Anderson,
I
if
think
both
Dana
sides say
Bash
you're
has done a
doing
great
something
job.
wrong,
Okay,
you must be
Sorry,
doing okay. If both sides are saying that you're doing something wrong, you must be doing okay.
All right, listen, I appreciate everybody.